All right, let's dive into the high-stakes world of poker. But here's the thing. We're not just here to talk about cards. We're actually going to use the pressure cooker of the poker table as a really surprising way to look at our own lives, our decisions, and yeah, what it actually means to be free.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty powerful idea. This quote really sets the tone for everything we're about to get into. The whole idea is that the strongest chains aren't made of iron, they're the systems we just accept without even thinking about it.
And that right there leads us to the central question of this whole explainer. In our search for feeling safe, for stability, for comfort, have we accidentally given up something way more valuable? It's a big question, for sure. But our guide to answering it, well, it comes from a pretty unexpected place.
So, how do we even begin to tackle a question that big? We're going to use the poker table as a kind of life laboratory. I mean, think about it. It's a place where you're forced to make these huge decisions with only half the story under incredible pressure. Sound familiar at all? You see, this is what makes poker such a perfect analogy for life. You never have all the facts. You're constantly weighing risk versus reward. And your own mindset, and your opponent's, is a massive part of the game. It's basically a super condensed, high-speed version of life itself.
Okay, let's break down a fundamental choice in poker that has some huge parallels to life. Do you play it passively? Just calling to see what happens next? The problem is, that can lead to some really tricky spots down the line. Or do you play aggressively, raising to take control of the situation right now? One's reactive, the other is proactive. And here's the key insight, really. The best players, and honestly the most effective people in general, they make their big moves from a place of clarity and confidence. They don't wait around until things get messy and fear starts to take over. They act decisively before the situation spirals into chaos.
All right, let's add another tool to our mental toolkit here. This idea of outs. In poker, it's pretty simple. It's just the number of cards left in the deck that can turn your hand into a winner. But in life, it's about asking yourself, what are my actual paths to success here? How many real, genuine opportunities do I have?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because not all opportunities are created equal. A clean out is a card that wins you the pot. Simple. But a poison out, well, that's a trap. It looks like it helps you, but what it's secretly doing is helping your opponent even more. It's that promotion that comes with impossible expectations, or that opportunity that just seems a little too good to be true. Okay, part 2, from the fell to your future, we've got the poker concepts down, so now let's see how they translate from the card table, directly to the choices you're facing every single day. I mean, think about it. That scare card that flips over and suddenly changes the entire game, that's the unexpected layoff, the sudden crisis. And having a bunch of poisoned outs is like chasing a career path that looks amazing on paper, but is ultimately just going to make you miserable. Just being able to spot these patterns is the first step to getting through them. Here's a really subtle but super important idea, the break-even play. This is basically a 50-50 shot, a coin flip. On paper, mathematically, it's a neutral choice. But in a poker tournament or in life, taking a coin flip that could get you knocked out of the game entirely is a massively risky move. And this is the trap. Why would you risk everything on one hand when the real goal is just to stay in the game long enough to find better spots, better opportunities? The parallel in life is that so-called safe but totally dead-end career path. It might feel like a break-even choice right now, but it completely eliminates your shot at a much bigger win down the road. The goal isn't just to break even, it's to preserve your options, to see more hands. So all of these ideas, acting with confidence, dodging those poisoned outs, staying in the game, it all leads to this incredibly powerful central metaphor from our source material that I think is really going to stick with you. So, are you the domesticated pig, happy and comfortable in the pen? You choose comfort, you choose dependence. You accept whatever you're given because, hey, it's certain. Or are you the wild boar? You value freedom, even with all the risks that come with it. You don't just accept the system, you're actively looking for a way to navigate it on your own terms, or maybe even escape it completely. And that metaphor, it naturally pushes us to ask a really tough question about the world we're all living in. Are our institutions, our economies, our schools, are they designed to create that independent wild boar spirit? Or are they built to encourage comfortable, predictable domestication?
So, the source material explores this through a fascinating debate on capitalism and control. On one side, you have the argument that things like universal basic income could actually become tools for control, keeping people dependent, or that the super rich manipulate the system for their own benefit. But on the flip side, you get counterpoints like, well, a lot of that wealth is tied up in stock, it's not just cash, and that these systems also drive real innovation that creates genuine value for everybody. It's a complicated picture, for sure.
And, this exact same tension shows up when we talk about education. Is its main purpose to create compliant workers for the system, rewarding obedience over everything else? Or should its real goal be empowerment, to teach resilience, critical thinking, and self-control, to forge capable, independent thinkers?
So, after going through poker strategy and philosophy and all of this, it really comes back to one thing: how you play the hand you're dealt in your own life. So, let's boil everything we've talked about down into a practical toolkit. Here it is, your mental toolkit. First up, act from a position of confidence, not fear. Second, get really good at spotting the difference between a real opportunity and one that's just a poison trap. Third, avoid those high-risk, break-even plays that could take you out of the game for good. And finally, maybe the most important one, ask yourself honestly, is this choice leading me towards the comfort of the pen or the freedom of the forest? And all of that leaves us with one final question to think about. The domesticated pig. It plays to survive. It's just trying to make it to the next meal. The wild boar, though, using strategy, courage, and a clear understanding of the game, it's playing for something more. It's playing to win. So, in the tournament of life, which one are you?
Welcome to The Debate. Our foundational text today explores the human condition through a really powerful philosophical analogy. It's centered on domestication, the contrast between the well-fed, dependent pig and the free, self-reliant wild boar. It forces a pretty stark comparison between comfort and responsibility.
It's a compelling metaphor for sure. It really highlights an uncomfortable truth, which is that most people appear to choose the safety of the pen over the daunting uncertainty that comes with genuine radical freedom. It makes us ask why. Why have we become so domesticated collectively?
Exactly. And the central disagreement we need to unpack here is, well, it's foundational to philosophy. Is this human tendency toward submission, toward dependence on systems, and a preference for predictable order, is it fundamentally rooted in an intrinsic, biological human nature, a deep-seated need for security, or is this subservience purely the result of intensive societal engineering and conditioning that begins the moment we're born?
And I'm going to argue that this preference for dependence is decisively imposed. It's a learned dependency enforced by systems, economic, educational, cultural, that are frankly explicitly designed to create order and control. We are conditioned into submission.
And I'll be standing on the side of nature. I'll argue that this preference for comfort, for order, and dependence over the intense risk and responsibility that radical freedom requires, that's intrinsic to human behavior. It's driven by deep-seated evolutionary and psychological needs for stability. I see why you think that conditioning is the sole culprit, but let me offer a different perspective, one that's really rooted in basic human psychology. My core thesis is that the inclination toward the domesticated life is an innate mechanism for stability. The source material is quite explicit about this. The majority of people willingly choose systems that control them. The reality of slavery existing without chains, precisely because true freedom is profoundly scary. Freedom means ultimate responsibility, and most humans inherently shrink from that scale of uncertainty. The crucial evidence here is observational. Just watch young children.
Before intensive formal schooling, they often spontaneously fall into obedient patterns. They thrive on predictable routines. That immediate inclination towards structure suggests the tendency for compliance is not purely learned. It's an innate default mechanism for seeking stability. If the environment provides the pen, the human is predisposed to just walk right into it.
I come at it from a different way. While the observation of early obedience is undeniable, the domestication we see in adult society is not a natural state. It is a meticulously imposed state. It's a dependency that's actively reinforced by structures that reward control and conformity,
and they often systemically stifle the individual's impulse for exploration and independence. Just consider the purpose of our current mass education system. It often functions as behavioral training, not true intellectual empowerment. School systems reward the child who follows instructions precisely, sits quietly, over the child who challenges the premise or explores some unique, non-conforming creative path. This systemically stifles independent thought, and, well, it generates a populace prone to dependency. The conditioning, whether it's parental expectation, cultural norms, reward structures, it begins so immediately upon birth that obedience feels entirely natural, even if it's simply the path of least resistance taught from day one. Society conditions people to seek external order instead of cultivating internal independence. And that means the choice for freedom, to be the wild boar escaping the pen, is a demanding path of intentional, lifelong resistance, not a natural default.
And that structural framework brings us right to our first major point of contention: interpreting the root cause of that early compliance. You accept the observation that young children demonstrate spontaneous obedience, that they seek structure, but you immediately attribute this to conditioning that starts in infancy. I have to reiterate the evidence here. If the tendency toward compliance were entirely conditioned, we really should observe a period of pure, chaotic self-direction until the external systems successfully impose order. But we don't. The immediate pre-verbal inclination toward structure, toward compliance with simple routines, it suggests a much more direct indicator of a natural, risk-averse preference for predictability in the world around us. It's the core human strategy for managing an overwhelming world.
That's an interesting point about chaos, though I would frame it differently. I think we need to critically examine what constitutes early and what constitutes conditioning. Is the primary source of conditioning parental cues, which are themselves rooted in cultural norms? Absolutely. The conditioning systems, whether it's immediate rewards for compliance, the soothing tone used when a routine is followed, or the stress induced when rules are broken, they begin so instantly that conceptually separating intrinsic nature from environmental response becomes, well, it's virtually impossible. The resultant obedience only feels natural because the programming is ubiquitous and flawlessly executed by the surrounding culture. If compliance is the only viable route to stability, sustenance, and comfort from day one, then seeking compliance becomes the primary survival mechanism. Achieving a coerced equilibrium, not an innate preference for being a subordinate. Right, and this coerced equilibrium is maintained through the very structures you champion as necessary. And this brings us to the core issue of education and its role in maintaining dependency. The material contrasts the goal of true growth, the ability to think independently, solve problems under pressure, achieve self-control, much like Stoic philosophy or advanced poker strategy. It contrasts that with the reality of current systems. I'm just not convinced by the idea that mass obedience is necessary for cooperation, because these systems instead reward passive dependency. They create a populace that is easily managed and predictable, fulfilling the domestication analogy perfectly. The average education system does not prepare you to survive alone in the forest. It trains you to wait patiently and perform a specific function for the farmer's feeding trough.
Okay, I do acknowledge the tension there, absolutely. The tension between cultivating true individual empowerment and meeting the operational requirements of a complex society. But we have to reframe the utility of this compliance. Think about it. A society of billions, or even millions for that matter, it simply cannot function efficiently if every single individual is a radical wild boar, prioritizing self-determination above all else. What you call brainwashing through educational rewards, I might call essential socialization. This is required for managing the sheer scale of complexity and uncertainty that humans naturally fear. The system may indeed reward dependence, but it does so by providing predictable security, which, to the risk-averse human psyche, is profoundly valuable. The wild boar enjoys freedom, yes, but at the cost of guaranteed survivability. The pig, having outsourced its survival, is buffered from catastrophe. And that buffering is the intrinsic draw, speaking of that draw toward predictability. That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the strategic, philosophical takeaway that's directly related to the poker analysis in the material? I'm referencing the concept of break-even decisions in life, paralleling the dynamics of large tournament play. We should probably introduce the concept of expected value, or EV, here. So, EV simply means the long-term statistical outcome of a decision if you make it repeatedly. The strategic insight emphasized in the material is that maximizing long-term EV often means prioritizing survivability, just staying in the game longer, even if a high-variance mathematically neutral play exists. This preference for stability, for avoiding early bust-outs, is a rational, deep-seated human instinct. And it manifests as choosing the domesticated structure, the predictability of the pen, over the swinginess and catastrophic risk of the wild forest.
It's a calculated, intrinsic choice for minimizing risk and maximizing guaranteed time on Earth.
I fully agree that survivability is a primary human instinct, and I understand the strategic value of minimizing risk in high-stakes environments. But your argument assumes the domesticated system allows for a true choice between two viable paths, stability or radical freedom. I reject that premise entirely. The current domesticated system ensures survivability, yes, but only at the cost of genuine, meaningful independence. The material highlights this perfectly with the discussion of mechanisms like universal basic income, or UBI. These systems are powerful tools for social control, designed to keep people alive, a managed survivability, but simultaneously economically shackled. The so-called choice to stay in the game is an illusion when the system dictates the rules, the stakes, and the astronomical penalties for trying to leave the table entirely.
This just confirms that the environment dictates the only viable break-even decision for the average person is submission to the system, regardless of whether that submission feels good or natural. If the wild path guarantees starvation and the pen guarantees life, well, submission is not a choice of nature. It is the forced consequence of an engineered environment.
But doesn't the immediate, intuitive grasp of that risk calculation, the realization that the wild path is mathematically suicidal for most, doesn't that suggest the preference for the system is still rooted in a rational, intrinsic valuation of life and comfort? We're not arguing that the system is utopian, merely that the inclination to submit to it is natural. If 99% of people presented with a free, unpredictable life with a 70% chance of failure in 5 years and a controlled, dependent life with a 95% chance of comfortable longevity choose the latter, that is a function of nature's aversion to volatility.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the degree of dependence we observe is solely driven by this, let's say, benign, intrinsic calculation. This brings us to the active role of the system architects. The economic reality strongly reinforces the conditioning argument. We have to discuss the role of economic elites, major corporate forces, the sophisticated system manipulators who actively lobby and leverage capital to establish government conditions favorable to their control. This accumulation of leverage reinforces the controlling environment, making independent freedom, the wild boar path, exponentially more difficult, more resource-intensive, and frankly, more dangerous for the individual. If the structures of power actively conspire to push you toward dependence, then dependence is not a choice of nature. It is a meticulously manufactured, coerced equilibrium of the environment.
But attributing system preference solely to external manipulation overlooks the creation of genuine, intrinsic value within that system. Norman's counterpoints during our material review are relevant here. Individuals like Elon Musk's wealth, for instance, is largely tied up in stock value, which represents perceived future value creation. Entities like Tesla and SpaceX create monumental innovation and tangible social benefits, advanced transport, reliable communication, increased longevity that humans naturally gravitate toward, often independent of pure manipulation. A person chooses the safety of the pen not just because a farmer forces them in, but because the farmer offers consistent sustenance, advanced technology, and protection that the wild cannot possibly guarantee. That initial rational draw towards stability and innovation is the foundation of domestication. It's a transaction.
It may be a transaction, but it is one executed under duress. The presence of innovation does not negate the power imbalance.
The system designers aren't just offering value, they are ensuring that the vast majority must rely on that value because the conditions for self-sufficiency, the wild path, have been methodically destroyed. When the economic barriers to entry for true independence are set astronomically high by consolidated power and regulatory complexity, the system is actively forcing the choice. The elite benefit precisely because the system they engineered has made individual self-determination economically unviable for the majority. They don't just provide stability, they make instability the only alternative to submission. That is conditioning, leveraged through economic coercion.
But even if we accept that economic leverage makes the wild path harder, why does that leverage work? It works because it offers predictable comfort. If human nature were truly optimized for radical freedom and independence, these levers of comfort and stability wouldn't hold such universal appeal. You are arguing that dependence is forced. I argue that the preference for what is being forced, comfort and security, is innate. It's the difference between being forced to eat a food you hate versus being forced to eat a food you already crave. The innate craving for security makes the system's coercion dramatically more effective.
If that innate craving is so strong, why do we constantly see individuals fighting back? Why do revolutionary movements, entrepreneurs, and intellectual dissidents constantly risk comfort for principle and independence? Those who seek the wild path and often pay a severe price for it represent the baseline human nature that the system must aggressively suppress and condition out of the population. They're the evidence that the default is not satisfied submission.
And those outliers, while fascinating, represent the tiny percentage who are naturally optimized for high-risk, high-reward life strategies. The top-tier tournament players, perhaps. My focus is on the vast statistical majority, the 95% who find freedom paralyzing and are genuinely relieved by the arrival of a predictable system. So, in summarizing my position, I acknowledge that conditioning and systemic structure play an immensely powerful role in reinforcing dependence. I mean, no system works with reinforcement. However, the fundamental preference for predictability, for comfort, and group survivability, illustrated by the innate fear of uncertainty and the strategic value of staying in the game as a low-risk life strategy, this strongly suggests that human nature is fundamentally predisposed to this form of domestication. The system is effective because it appeals to our deepest, most rational instincts for self-preservation.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that the scale and depth of dependence we observe is simply natural. The entire architecture of society, from the educational reward system to the engineered economic environment, actively stifles independence and explicitly empowers passive obedience. They have made the path of the wild boar economically terrifying and functionally impossible for the majority. The prevalence of dependence is, therefore, a testament not to the inevitability of nature, but to the effectiveness and pervasiveness of expert conditioning. Humanity is maneuvered and coerced into the domesticated cage. We are not born craving its confines.
And this is where the difficulty lies, isn't it? In separating that intrinsic tendency towards safety from the environmental influence, especially when, as we've noted, that conditioning begins literally before memory starts. The two forces are utterly intertwined.
Indeed. The fundamental question remains for the listener to consider as they review the material and look at their own lives. In the complex systems you navigate daily, are you truly empowered to choose independence, or are you simply being rewarded for your obedience to a system designed to keep you in the pen? There is certainly more to explore in how these incentives shape our philosophical perspective on freedom itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive. You've brought in a stack of sources today that, it's one of the most fascinating pairings I think we've ever looked at.
It really is something else.
We're talking about the super tactical worlds of high-stakes poker, but it's mashed up with deep ancient Stoic philosophy.
Exactly. It's a really remarkable juxtaposition. What we have are these incredibly detailed notes from a private coaching session. The coach is this master strategist, Norman, and his student isn't just some poker pro.
Right.
He's also deeply, deeply into wisdom traditions. I mean, the guy's written 5 books on Stoic philosophy. 2 of them are already fully translated and out there.
Wow. So that's the fusion right there. You've got
Yeah.
this cold, hard, calculated risk assessment you need in the moment for poker hand.
Mm-hmm.
And you're balancing that against this stoic search for, resilience, independence, the long game of life. That's our focus today.
It is. Our whole mission here is to pull out those core decision-making principles from the poker table.
Things like risk, variance, expected value, EV. Right?
All of it, the whole mathematical toolkit. And then we're going to apply it directly to those huge, messy life decisions we all have to face.
Decisions about independence, stability, comfort.
Yeah.
What freedom really costs.
Precisely. We're looking for that common calculus, the underlying math that defines success, whether you're at a casino table or just, navigating the human condition.
So let's start where the math is the sharpest. We're jumping straight into section 1, the tactical deep dive. We need to get really precise here, just like Norman would, and break down some specific hands to get these concepts.
Let's do it.
All right, we're starting with a hand that just perfectly captures this tension between letting your opponent make a future mistake versus forcing their hand right now.
Mm-hmm.
The player flops top pair with a good kicker. So strong hand, but not invincible. The big problem is the board is wet.
A wet board, yeah. It's poker jargon for a board that is just full of potential disaster.
Loaded with draws.
Exactly. The community cards are connected in a way that means straights and flushes are very, very possible by the end of the hand. In the actual hand from the notes, the player has top pair.
Let's say like king queen on a king 10-4 board.
Perfect example. And say 2 of those cards are hearts. Now you have a huge flush draw threat out there. Plus, the king and 10 open up straight possibilities. So you're ahead for sure, but you are incredibly vulnerable to the next cards that come out.
The scare card.
The scare cards. And in this spot, the opponent bets half the pot.
Which sets up this huge dilemma. Do you just call and let them see the next card for cheap, or do you raise all in and put them to the test right now?
And the simple, sort of superficial argument is to just call. That's what the student in the notes was thinking at first.
Yeah, you want to keep weaker hands in, right? Let them bluff, let them chase their draws so you can get more money later if they miss.
It feels patient. It feels strategic. You think you're being deceptive.
But Norman, based on the notes, he just steamrolls that argument. He's all about the all-in raise. He calls it equity protection.
This is where the cold math just completely takes over from the psychological temptation.
So break down equity for us. What does that actually mean in this spot?
Okay, so equity is just your mathematical share of the pot at any given moment. If there's $100 in the pot and you have an 80% chance of winning the hand right now, your equity is $80.
Simple enough.
But here's the key. If your opponent is on that flush draw, they might only have a, say, 35 or 40% chance to win. But that's still a huge chunk of the pot that mathematically belongs to them.
Because they still have 2 more cards to come, the turn and the river, to hit their hand.
Precisely. And if you just call, you are letting them pay a very small price to try and realize that 35 or 40% equity.
You're giving them a cheap lottery ticket.
A very cheap and very good lottery ticket. But if you raise all in, you deny them that equity. You make the price of seeing the next card way too high.
So they have to fold.
They have to fold their draw. And that 35% chance they had of beating you, it just vanishes. It goes to 0. You just won their share of the pot.
And that's a massive long-term game. You're stopping them from getting lucky.
You're preventing a future loss. I mean, think about it. If you just call and then the 4th heart hits the ultimate scare card, what do you do now?
Oh, you're in a terrible spot. The pot's bigger, your hand is probably toast, and you're completely lost.
You are totally confused, and it's because you were passive on the flop when you knew you were ahead. You had control, and you gave it away.
And this gets into the math of commitment, right? The stack-to-pot ratio, or SPR.
Yes, the SPR. This calculation is everything in high-level poker. It's just the ratio of your remaining chips to the amount of money already in the pot.
So if you have $500 left and the pot is 100, your SPR is 5.
Right. And Norman's point in the notes is that when that ratio gets low, say 3 or less, you are basically pot committed. You can't really fold anymore. There's too much money in there to give up.
So that all-in raise works best when the SPR is in that sweet spot where you can apply maximum pressure, but your opponent isn't forced to call.
Correct. You make the price of continuing with their draw just mathematically wrong. You're giving them terrible pot odds to chase.
And this leads to what I think is the biggest insight, the one that goes way beyond the poker table. Norman says, make your decisions when you're confident, not when the board turns scary and you're confused.
That's the whole lesson, preemptive control. The flop, when you know you have the best hand, that's your moment of confidence.
The turn, after the disaster card hits, that's the moment of confusion and fear.
So you have to lock in your win, protect your equity when the facts are on your side. It makes you think, how often in life do we put off a tough decision today, only to be forced into a much worse, more confusing one tomorrow when things have gone wrong?
It's pure stoicism. Act decisively on what you can control. You can't control the next card, but you can control the betting. And this is where it gets really interesting, because to protect your equity properly, you have to know exactly what you're protecting against. And the notes have this incredibly precise system for identifying and classifying straight draws. You have to know which ones are real threats and which are just noise.
Yes, you're moving from a general feeling the board is wet to a quantitative threat assessment. You can't just go all in against every possible draw. That's a mistake too.
So let's break down the system. It starts with the weakest draws. 2 card gaps.
Right. So imagine you're holding a 4 and a 7. To make a straight, you need 2 very specific cards to come running, a 5 and a 6.
Like a backdoor draw.
Exactly. The odds of hitting that exact sequence, a 5 on the turn and a 6 on the river, are incredibly low. It's almost not worth worrying about unless your opponent is playing like a total maniac.
Okay, so then we level up to the 1 card gaps. These are more dangerous.
Much more. This is your classic gut shot straight draw. You hold a 2 and a 4, and you need that one specific card, the 3, to complete your straight.
You have 4 outs, the 4 threes in the deck.
Correct. So that gives you about a 16% chance to hit by the river. It's a real threat, but it's still not as scary as the last category.
Which is when the cards are close together, the open-ended draws.
This is the big one, an open-ended straight draw. Say you have an 8 and a 9, and the board has a 6 and a 7. You can hit a 5 on one end or a 10 on the other.
So you have 8 outs. Double the gut shot.
Exactly. 8 outs. That's roughly a 32% chance of making your straight by the river. That's huge equity.
That's the kind of draw you have to protect against.
That is what Norman means by a real draw. The open-ended ones, the ones with 8 or more outs. You have to be aggressive and deny that equity. An opponent chasing an 8-out draw has a legitimate claim to a third of the pot. You can't let them see a cheap card.
Whereas the gut shot,
Yeah.
maybe you can let that one slide sometimes.
Maybe. It depends on the other factors. But it's about making that distinction. It's the difference between seeing a sniper on the ridge and seeing a kid with a slingshot.
One requires immediate, overwhelming force. The other, you can manage differently.
And that idea of managing risk, of knowing when to be aggressive and when to be cautious, leads right into our second hand.
Okay, this next hand review shifts the focus a bit. It's less about pure equity in one hand and more about the long-term strategy of just surviving a poker tournament.
And reducing variance, that's the key.
So the player has a pretty weak hand, King 3 suited. But they're in the blinds, they call a raise, and they flop top pair. It feels great.
It feels amazing, but it's a total trap. A classic trap hand.
Why? Because your kicker, the 3, is so bad.
It's terrible. You have the best hand right now, but if your opponent also has a king, like ace-king or king-jack, you're completely dominated. You're drawing almost dead.
This forces a much deeper level of thinking. You can't just count your outs anymore. You have to figure out which ones are clean and which are poisoned.
Yes. A poisoned out. This is a crucial concept for high-level play.
So walk us through it. What is a poisoned out?
A poisoned out is a card that looks like it helps you, but it actually either doesn't win you the pot, or even worse, it makes you lose a bigger pot.
And the notes give 2 perfect examples with this King 3 hand.
The first one is the kicker problem. Let's say you hit another 3 on the turn. Great, you have 2 pair, but if your opponent had a hand like King 10, they also just made 2 pair, and theirs is bigger.
Your out actually made them a better hand.
Or even worse, say another king comes, you have trips. But if they had ace-king, they also have trips, and they win with the ace kicker. The king looked like your card, but it was poisoned.
And the second example brings it back to the draws we were just talking about.
Right. Say you're on a straight draw. You need a queen. But the board also has a flush draw out there. If the queen you need is also the card that completes your opponent's flush,
Your straight is worthless.
it's worse than worthless, because you're going to bet it, they're going to raise, and you're going to lose your whole stack. That queen was a poisoned out.
This level of complexity is why the idea of a break-even decision is so dangerous in a tournament.
A break-even play is one where the math says the expected value, the EV, is 0. Over the long run, you don't win or lose money in that spot.
In a cash game, who cares?
Exactly. It just burns time. But in a tournament, taking a 0 EV high variance spot is a strategic catastrophe.
Because if you lose, you're out. And getting eliminated is the ultimate negative EV outcome. Your chance of winning anything drops to 0 instantly.
Norman uses this fantastic analogy to make the point. He asks, would you rather play 2 separate tournaments where you start with 70 big blinds in each? Or would you rather play one single tournament with a 140 big blind stack, but you have to give up the other one?
I think most pros would take the single big stack.
Of course, because a big stack gives you leverage, it gives you control, and most importantly, it gives you survivability. You can afford to lose a few pots, you can weather the storm.
The core lesson here is that in a tournament, stability is more important than grabbing every tiny little edge. The goal is to see more hands.
More hands means more opportunities. And more opportunities means you'll eventually find those spots where an opponent makes a huge, catastrophic mistake and you can win a massive pot.
Those are way more profitable than the tiny break-even coin flip spots.
Infinitely more. So you avoid the high variance break-even plays because they carry this inherent risk of elimination. And getting eliminated means you forfeit all those future high-profit opportunities.
So the master strategist prioritizes low variance and stability. They stay in the game. And that shift from just trying to maximize every single hand to maximizing long-term survival, that's the perfect way to get into the philosophy.
It's the perfect segue.
Right. We're shifting from the high variance of a poker hand to the high variance of trying to live a free life. This is section 2, the philosophical deep dive. We're looking at the cost of trading independence for comfort.
And it all comes down to this incredible analogy Norman introduces.
The wild boar versus the domesticated pig.
It is such a powerful, vivid metaphor. It's meant to be a little shocking.
So lay it out. The domesticated pig. What's its life like?
The pig's life is one of perfect certainty. It gets fed every day. It has shelter. There are no predators. The farmer takes care of everything.
Sounds pretty good.
It sounds great. But the pig is completely dependent. It has 0 power, 0 control over its own existence. Its fate is entirely in the farmer's hands.
And then you have the wild boar.
The wild boar lives in the scary forest. It faces constant threats. It has to find its own food every single day. It is completely and totally responsible for its own survival.
But it's free.
But it is sovereign. It is free. And Norman's argument, the core of this whole philosophical discussion, is that most modern humans, we choose to be the pig.
We choose the comfort. The certainty of the farmer's feed bucket over the scary, uncertain forest.
Yes. The critique is that society itself, our entire system, conditions us to seek that dependence. From the day we're born, we're taught to follow the rules, to value order, to submit to systems.
To fear being different.
To fear being the wild boar. The whole system is designed for stability and predictability, not for rugged, chaotic independence.
And I found it really telling how the student in the notes sees himself in this analogy.
It's fascinating. He says he feels like the wild boar in the pen.
What does that mean?
It means he has the mindset of the boar. He's read the Stoics. He understands self-reliance and independence. But he recognizes that he still lives inside the system, the economic pen.
He still eats the farmer's feed.
He still eats the feed. He wants to escape to the forest, but he knows that the guaranteed food is a form of control, a form of leverage the system has over him.
It totally reframes the idea of a paycheck, doesn't it? It's not just income. It could also be a shackle.
Is your source of stability also the thing that's controlling you? That's the question. The pig might be well fed, but its life is not its own. The boar might be hungry, but every choice it makes is its own.
And this critique of control then zooms in on some really specific modern ideas like universal basic income, UBI. The student goes right after it.
He does, and it's a very provocative take. He argues that UBI wouldn't be a tool for freedom, for liberating people. He sees it as the ultimate tool of domestication.
The ultimate feed bucket.
The ultimate feed bucket. His argument is that it would be used as a political control mechanism. You keep people just comfortable enough that they don't revolt, but they remain permanently dependent on the state for their survival.
They're economically shackled.
Yeah.
The incentive to go out and be the wild boar is just gone.
Why would you risk the high variance of starting a business or trying something new when the low variance option of guaranteed survival is handed to you? It leverages that human desire for certainty we saw at the poker table.
And this critique then expands to elites, right? He brings up people like Elon Musk.
Yeah, the student's view is that billionaires aren't just rich, they're elite manipulators. They use their wealth and influence to lobby governments, to shape policies that benefit them, that accumulate more and more leverage over society.
That's a pretty dark view of wealth creation.
It is. But this is where Norman, the pragmatist, steps in with some really important counterpoints. He doesn't just let the student's critique stand unchallenged.
Which is crucial. We have to hear both sides. What was Norman's pushback?
Well, first, he challenges the very idea of what billionaire wealth is. He points out that most of Musk's wealth isn't cash. It's not a giant pile of money he can just spend.
It's stock. It's tied up in the company.
It's unrealized stock value. It's tied directly to the performance of Tesla and his other companies. And that value can disappear tomorrow if the market turns. So that leverage is conditional. It's not absolute power.
It's interesting because in a way, that kind of wealth is its own form of wild boar independence, isn't it? It's not a predictable salary.
That's a brilliant point. It is a double-edged sword. But Norman's second counterpoint is about value creation. He says, look at what these companies do. Tesla basically forced the entire global auto industry to go electric.
Right, that created jobs, new technology.
Huge societal benefits. It challenges the idea that the wealth was just sort of extracted from the system. It was created through innovation.
And then Norman makes a surprising defense of protectionism.
Yeah, which seems to go against the pure free market wild boar idea. He mentions things like blocking Chinese EVs. His argument is that sometimes that kind of protection is a necessary defensive play.
Like protecting your equity in a poker hand.
Exactly. You do it to preserve your domestic manufacturing base, to keep critical industries and jobs at home. You might accept a less than optimal free market condition in the short term to ensure your long-term national survival.
So it's not a simple good guys versus bad guys narrative.
Yeah.
It's this complex system of innovation, control, protection, leverage, all interacting at once.
Precisely. The real philosophical challenge isn't to tear down all systems, but to figure out where necessary stability turns into insidious control.
And that line between helpful structure and harmful control that leads us straight to the topic of education.
The primary system for preparing us for life.
And the notes make a really sharp distinction between what they call true growth and what is basically just compliance.
Real growth, seen through that stoic lens, is all about empowering the individual. It's about building resilience, self-control, courage, all the virtues you'd need to be the wild boar.
To be able to handle the uncertainty of the forest.
Exactly. But the critique leveled in the notes is that our modern education systems often do the complete opposite.
How so?
The argument is that these systems, just because of how big and standardized they are, end up rewarding obedience and conformity.
Not independent thought.
Not independent thought. They reward following the rules, meeting the deadlines, giving the right answer, the kind of radical questioning or nonconformity that leads to real breakthroughs. That's usually seen as disruptive. It's inconvenient for the system.
So it's not teaching you how to think, it's teaching you how to fit in.
That's the core of the critique. And if the whole system is designed to reward fitting in, you end up with a population that's psychologically primed for domestication. They're trained to look for instructions from the outside, not for answers from within.
Which leads to this really chilling concept this student brings up. Slavery without chains.
It's a powerful idea. The argument is that true slavery isn't just about physical chains.
It's mental.
It's when a person willingly gives up their own choices, their own potential, because they desire comfort and certainty more than anything else.
The chains are invisible because we forged them ourselves out of fear. Fear of the unknown.
You trade your own sovereignty for the predictability of the routine. You choose the low variance, low growth life because the psychological terror of trying for high variance, high growth freedom is it's too much for most people to handle.
You essentially cap your own potential. You cap your life's EV because you're terrified of taking a short-term loss.
And it's self-imposed. That's the most tragic part. The slavery is internalized.
So that brings us to the biggest question of all, the really fundamental one. Is this just human nature? Are we hardwired to choose domestication? Or is it all learned?
The classic nature versus nurture debate.
Right. Is the wild boar a freak of nature, or is it our default setting that gets beaten out of us?
The notes capture both sides of this. Norman, the pragmatist, kind of leans towards the nature argument. He says, just look at little kids.
What about them?
They almost immediately start looking for structure, for hierarchy, for rules, for an authority figure to tell them what to do. It suggests we might have this evolutionary predisposition to follow the herd. It's safer.
So for thousands of years, obedience was the best survival strategy. If you didn't follow the rules of the tribe, you were kicked out and you died.
It's a built-in safety mechanism. The fear of freedom isn't learned. It's an ancient instinct.
But the counter-argument, the nurture side, is just as strong, right?
Absolutely. The argument there is that the conditioning starts so young and it is so relentless.
From day one.
From day one. Schedules, punishments, rewards. The system of control begins the moment we're born. So by the time we're old enough to think about it, that learned behavior just feels like instinct.
It's all we've ever known.
Right. The argument is we're all born as wild boars, but society is the farmer that slowly, methodically tames us until the idea of the forest is genuinely terrifying.
And this ties the whole conversation right back to that first poker hand. The fear of freedom is the fear of variance.
That's it, 100%. When people are faced with the chaotic, high-variance reality of true independence, of betting on themselves, most of them will choose the low-variance certainty of the controlled system every single time.
They'd rather have the guaranteed paycheck than risk it all on a business that might fail.
They choose the feed in the pen over the potential feast in the scary forest, because if you're wrong in the forest, you starve. It's catastrophic. It's elimination from the tournament.
So they adopt the tournament survival mindset for their entire life, which caps their potential. They're so busy just surviving today that they forget the goal is to actually thrive.
And that stability, that comfortable dependency, that's the ultimate break-even play in life. It keeps you where you are, but it guarantees you'll never really get ahead. So if we connect this all together, the entire discussion, from a single poker hand to the structure of society, it all comes down to one thing.
The management of risk and the maximization of long-term expected value, EV.
In poker, we saw that the best way to maximize your long-term EV in a tournament is actually to prioritize stability. You reduce variance. You avoid those risky break-even spots.
Because surviving to play another day gives you more opportunities for huge wins later.
Exactly. But the philosophical question these notes pose is, are we applying that principle incorrectly to our lives? Are we prioritizing stability so much that we're actually killing our potential for any real growth?
We're faced with the choice laid out in the notes. The domesticated pig.
Which is the low variance, low EV growth path of comfortable dependency.
Versus the wild boar.
The high variance, scary path of freedom. But it's the only one that offers the possibility of massive high EV growth and true self-determination.
And we make those break-even decisions all the time, don't we? We stay in the job we hate because it's stable. We avoid the difficult conversation because it's uncomfortable. We just comply because it's easier.
And that's the final profound takeaway from these notes. Those break-even plays in life, they don't really break even. They are a slow loss. They just prolong the game without ever giving you a chance to truly win.
You're just capping your own EV at this level of comfortable mediocrity. You get fed, but you never win the prize.
The prize of an independent existence. The fear keeps the chains on.
We started this by talking about a single decision at a poker table. When to go all in on a wet board. About the need for precision and acting with confidence.
So the ultimate question this leaves for you, the learner, is this. As you look at your own life, your career, your finances, your relationships, what high variance, high reward opportunity are you currently treating as a break-even play?
Just to avoid that feeling of short-term uncertainty.
Are you sacrificing the massive long-term expected value of becoming the wild boar for the temporary, predictable comfort of being the domesticated pig? And if you ran the numbers, what does the cold, hard calculus suggest you should really be doing?
Welcome. I'm awaiting my poker teacher. We will talk probably about a philosophic subject and we'll also play some poker, analyze some hand. We'll do something regarding poker to improve my poker skills. First, I want to introduce to you my 5 books. I only recommend the last 2 because they are the only one I could edit until now. I didn't find time for the other ones to edit them. I will do it once I find enough time to do the work. I write all my books in French and translate them in different languages. It was written in French, it's La Voie du Diamant Stoic. That's my 5th book. In English, it is The Way of the Stoic Diamond. In German, it is Der Weg des Stoischen Diamond. My 4th book is A Stoic Samurai. In English, I've written it in French, A Samurai Stoic. I didn't have time to upload the German version. It will come. I could do some more languages than that. I need the time to do all that administrative work. It doesn't go fast. I have to do all the work on my own. It's time. My poker teacher should already be waiting. So we jump straight into the call.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Are they still doing some construction?
They only did it when was your lesson. I don't know.
I was lucky.
I guess so. Hasn't been construction noise for a week. Last time was when was your lesson? Maybe one day later also.
That's great news, because it was quite painful to listen to you last time. The noise reduction makes your voice cuts out pieces when you talk. It's not the greatest thing. We survived. If it's not every day like this, then there's some hope for the future. What do you want to do today?
Well, first I would ask you if you have any hands you'd like to review.
There are 2 hands.
There's something weird about this, but okay.
I call because everybody's limping. I make a 7. There are 2 checks. There are 5 goes for half pot. Player 7 folds. What do? I have a 7. I have a good kicker. It's a little dangerous because of the heart. I must at least call.
Well, you could. How big would the pot then be?
11 big blinds.
10.05. Let's say 10. How much of a bet would be left from the opponent? 2/3 could they bet? Quarter, how much of a bet would be left?
Something like 1/3.
I guess if the pot's 10, then you could make that tip amount into a percent exactly. You could say 38.5%, because pot's 10, they can bet this 385. It's less than half pot. Half pot would be 5 big blinds. It would be less than half pot bet left. I would say at that point, we would be committed, whatever would roll off. To me, really, the question is, you could certainly call the flop. Then I wouldn't ever fold on the turn. The other option is you just put the opponent all in. Then don't have to worry about the turn card.
Yeah, I agree.
What are some of the benefits or downsides to putting the opponent all in?
Maybe I can make player 2 fold easier. And I don't give him a chance to fold if he doesn't make his flush.
I sort of agree with this. Firstly, he could fold, even though it seems very unlikely. It's not impossible. I guess that's a benefit. Another benefit is player 5 could get scared on the turn. If we think we have the best hand at the moment, let's say player 5 has something like a 7. Or like a 4 or pocket 5s. If the turn would be, let's say, the ace of hearts, player 5 could get worried, like a flush comes in, ace comes in. The last good thing here is we have so many chips here that we're not risking our tournament with this decision. I think chances are you have the best hand. It's not a guarantee, but I think chances are. I would rather make a raise here. You could call and then decide on the turn. It will be a bit of a weird decision because there will be such a small bet left. For me, I would raise here and go with king 7.
It sounds good.
Player 2, that's a relief. It was true what you said, that if we call, it's more likely player 2 could call, which would worry us a bit. Here we are to the turn. Let's hope it's not the ace of hearts. Well, it's a pretty bad turn. Now it's weird because it's such a small bet left. This decision I try to avoid in a way. Like, I'm pretty confident the flop decision is good. I'd rather make my decision when I'm happy about it than when it's not so clear. It's a bit similar if you have aces pre-flop. You're not always going to win the pot. You can have confidence that you made the best decision, because you're a favorite against anything. If you play it very sneaky, see all the way to the river, then it might not be clearly a good decision to go all in with aces anymore. Anyhow, I wouldn't fold here anyhow. I know it's one of the worst turn cards. To me, the bet's too small. We should call this if we can win a little more than 1 in 5 times, between 1 in 4, 1 in 5 times. As scary as it is, we can win 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 times. It's not a fun decision, F4. You did fold here. I would ask, did that have anything to do with the fact that player 5 didn't go all in, bet only 2 big blinds here? Did that as stronger or weaker?
I see that stronger.
It kind of looks like he has no urgency. He has no desperation or fear about it. On the other hand, you could interpret it as being more cautious. To me, it looks quite strong indeed. I'm not a big fan of this hand. My overall advice is I wouldn't leave these small bets on the turn unless you plan to call them. Like, I'm not really a big fan of this a little more than 1/3 bet left and then folding when we had top pair. The flush is scary. It's not so scary.
He was limping, and then he goes very low, a half pot. Instead of going all in, he goes half pot. Then he only goes for 2, instead of again going all in.
To me, that's not enough to fold the 7.
I understand. To me, I thought he wanted to get as much out of me as possible. I thought he had the flush. I think he wants to go all in, and he will put the last 1.85 on the table.
I think so too, yeah.
He wanted to make it so small that I won't fold. I decided to fold.
It appears so. One thing here is, how confident are you of this read? Of the
55-60%.
I was thinking similar. Here's the issue. Look how big the pot is, the overall reward.
It's 10 big blinds. With what he will put on the table, it will be nearly 14 big blinds.
Can we then fold if we have 55-60% confidence in that?
I understand, but I'm already so much ahead that I thought it doesn't matter. If he doesn't have a good 7, why should he be betting anyway on this? He for sure has something. He has a queen, he has a 7. A 7 probably won't beat me. A queen will, a flush will also. He has something that can really beat me.
Which is more likely, a queen or a 7?
If not, he's just bluffing. And I wasn't sure that he was the kind of player that bluffs. But I might be wrong.
Which is more likely, a queen or a 7?
Queen is more likely.
Actually, I disagree.
Why is it not more likely? There are only 2 7s left. There are 3 queens left. So it should be more likely to have a queen.
When did the betting start?
The betting started already on the flop.
Which would be more interested to start betting there, a queen or a 7?
A 7.
Way more likely a 7. Would he bet on the flop if he had queen 10, queen 9, queen jack, queen 8? Which queen would bet on the flop? Very rare. He would have a queen. Queen's not really very likely. With 7s, you have one of the best 7s out there. I'll give you other stuff. He could have the open-ended straight draw that he flopped. Could you name me those 2 cards that would be open-ended straight draw?
3, 5.
That is correct, although I would name the more obvious one. You could say 3-5 is obvious, but something that would be even more likely. 3-5 is a strange hand. Not everybody plays it.
6-8.
6-8 would make a straight on.
9-10.
What would 9-10 make a straight on?
If he has 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, he has a straight.
If he has 9-10, which cards is he missing?
The 8.
Which straight cards would he have?
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Where do the 6?
I don't see a 6.
Well, he said he would have a 6.
Yeah, well, I tried with the lower cards. I tried with the 2-4. You didn't like that. I tried with the 7. What can I do else?
Oh, the 9 and a 10 is a bad answer, because it would need both a 6 and an 8. Can we agree on that?
You would need a 6 and an 8, yes.
That's a long shot. 9-10 really nothing there. What you said first, 3-5 is pretty good answer. How does 3-5 make a straight?
With 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, with a 6 then, but something else could also make it straight for 3-5.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Not really.
Why is not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? In this case, he needs a 3 and a 6. And then he would have a straight. Isn't that possible?
A 6 would make 3-5 a straight.
A 6 will make 3-5 a straight.
But what else?
5-6.
What about 5-6?
Then you will only need a 3 or an 8.
Okay, now you gave a full answer, right? So if one had 5-6, could someone have 5-6?
I don't think so.
You never see people limping with 5-6 suited?
Maybe.
Not very often, yeah?
I don't know. Normally they like to play higher card. Maybe they do. I don't know.
It's a pretty looking hand though. 5-6 is what I was thinking of initially. I would like that more than 3-5. What I didn't like with your straights with 3-5 is you said a 6, you didn't say an ace. Can that with 3-5?
Yes, you could have an ace, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Which 2 cards could make 3-5 a straight?
Ace and a 3.
No.
Okay, ace, a 5.
3-5 already has a 5.
We don't have an ace, Doc. We need an ace. We have a 2. We don't need a 2. We need a 3. An ace and
We have 3-5. We have 3-5.
Then we have everything we need. We just need an ace. We need a 5.
We
You tell
don't
me
have
we
an-
have the only thing we need is an ace. Everything
if
else
we-
we have in that case.
Yes, we would make a straight with an ace, but we can also make it without an ace. We make it without an ace.
If we get a 6,
Yes, exactly. If we have 3, 5, which are the two cards that make us a straight? An ace or a 6. But yeah, overall, it's important to get better at these straight understandings. The method with the straight. First, try to say 4 cards in a row that you have. 4 cards in a row that you have. Then look one lower, one higher. With 5, 6, can you tell me 4 cards in a row with 560 that you would have if you had 5, 6?
well, I can take 2 higher, 2 lower, or 1 higher, 1 lower.
With this board, if you have 5, 6, will it make 4 cards in a row?
5, 6. 5, 6, 7. 8, 9. We need 8, 9.
No. Let's start even somewhere else. One way to find straights is with the cards on the board. Can you find where there's a 2 number or 2 card gap? Is there a 2 card gap on this board? Are there 2 cards which have 2 cards between them?
There's a 2 gap between 4 and 7.
Which 2 cards could we put between them?
A 5 and a 6.
If we would do that, how many cards in a row would we have?
4.
Could you name those 4 cards?
4, 5, 6, 7.
Then for finding straights, do this thing where we can go 1 lower or 1 higher.
Then a 3 and 8.
Perfect. That's the sort of answer that would be acceptable. I would be happy with. If with 5 and a 6, you could hit either a 3 or an 8. Another way to make straights, other than the 2 card gap, is to look for a 1 card gap. And you find the 1 card gap on this board.
Yes, between a 4 and a 2.
For our straight cards, one of our cards we want for the card that's in the gap. What would that card be?
3.
Then the other card, we could choose a higher or lower one. So what could the higher or lower one?
An ace, a 5.
Let's choose an ace for it. Which would our 2 cards be then?
Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You named too many.
Our 2 cards would be an ace and a 5.
Well,
Then the 3 comes on the board, or it would be an ace. I don't know which card we have, but it's just a missing card.
yes, exactly. Any of those could be missing. If we have ace and a 5, we are missing a 3. If we have ace and a 3, then we're missing what?
A 5.
Great. And a 3, then we're missing what?
An ace.
5 and a 3 would put how many cards in a row?
It would put 4 cards in a row.
With 4 cards in a row, we can go 1 lower or 1 higher. The ace would be lower. What would be the higher way?
A 6.
It's 6. Exactly. There's one more straight we didn't talk about. That would be if there would be 2 cards next together on a board. Does this board have 2 cards next together?
No.
Overall, when looking for straights, that's what you're looking out for. You're looking for a 2 gap between cards, a 1 gap between cards, or when cards are close together. This board has 2 gap, 1 gap. It doesn't have the close together one.
Yes.
Now, which of these would have the least amount of possible straight cards? Which is the best way for us to make straights? If it's 2 gap, 1 gap, or 2 cards close together on the board?
2 cards close together.
Okay, what would be the second best way to make straight?
1 gap.
It would be the 1 gap. Then the 2 gap would be the least good way to make straights. Good. Hope this will help you in the future to recognize the straights.
Thank you, Norman. We have King 3. Everybody's limping. I'm calling on the small blind. I have a lot of big blinds, so I thought I can do it. King 3.
I agree.
King 3 normally doesn't play.
I agree. It's close. It's a very poor hand, but we have a lot of big blinds. It's okay, this decision.
I make a king. I'm first to go because I'm on the small blind.
Oh, I remembered something. Sorry. I wanted to ask you, could we go back to last hand? I wanted to ask you something there. On the turn, you can click the turn button here, and then he bet, right? I wanted to ask you, how big would the pot have to be for you to have called this turn? This 12 in the pot wasn't enough. What would have been enough for you?
If it's the double.
If it would be 24, then you would have taken this risk.
Yes, maybe. I don't know. I would have, because then I would think the chance of bluffing is higher.
Well, very well. We can go back to king 3. We flop a little bit on the flop. Let's see what happens. You go first here. Oh,
check.
great. Just to do a small exercise. Is there a 2 gap on this board?
No.
1 gap?
No.
Are there 2 cards close together?
No.
Are you sure? Are you really sure?
There are no close cards. King and ace is close.
When there's 2 cards next to each other, then there's a bunch of ways we could make straight. On this board, could we go with higher cards to make straight?
No.
We couldn't because the king doesn't connect with the 2-3 thing. The only way we could make a straight connecting with the ace king would be with cards.
Jack, a king, a queen, and an ace.
Let's start by putting the cards next to those 2 cards. What would be the 2 cards you could put next to them?
I could put a jack and a 10 next to them.
Well, that would leave a gap. Could you put a nix so there wouldn't be a gap?
I could put a queen, jack next to them.
Then you would have how many cards in a row?
3.
Could you name me the cards in a row you would have?
Jack, queen, king.
You would have a 4th card in a row there as well.
Jack, king, queen, king, ace.
The ace is next to the...
Yes.
You would have 4 cards in a row.
Yes.
With 4 cards in a row, do you remember what I said, how to find the straight?
Like you're 1 higher or 1 lower.
Okay, what would those be in this circumstance?
10.
That's correct. What would the higher one be?
There's no higher one.
Not on this one. Good. The other ways to make a straight would be if we would leave a gap. How could you leave a gap?
If instead of a king there would be a queen, then there would be a gap.
Let's not change the cards on the board. Let's change the cards we have.
Then with a gap, it would be a 10, a jack.
The gap card would be what?
A queen.
There would actually be another way to create a gap.
Then the gap gets bigger.
Well, actually, if it was a queen and a 10, the gap would still be 1, but the gap then wouldn't be in the middle. The gap would move a bit lower. What would be the gap if you had queen and a
queen and 10? It would be a jack.
The gap would be a jack then, yes. It's good. Some more straight practice. Hopefully at one point you will get so quick to notice all the straight dangers. So we get a bet from player 1 here. Then we get 1 call. You are getting some odds here. Pot is 12, similar to last pot. Bets big. What do you think here? I'll give you a clue. To me, this hand is not close. It doesn't give away what is the correct play. What would you guess?
Well, I have to win it 1 in 5. Is that correct?
It is correct.
Can I win it 1 in 5? They want both for half pot. Probably not. There are too many players on the table.
How do our outlooks look here? Like, what cards do we currently lose to?
We lose to an ace, we lose to a flush.
That's something that's not true. How many cards would you need to make a flush?
5 cards.
Could someone have 5 flush cards now?
No, they could get it on the turn or the river.
More than likely, will they get it or won't they get it? What's more likely?
They won't get it.
Would it still be a favorite against that at the moment? At the moment, we would not lose to a flush. We would only lose to an ace of what you said. There's another thing we would lose.
A straight, there's no straight right now.
Not a straight, not a flush. An ace, yes. Something else. What is that else? If it's not a straight, not a flush.
We of a cat.
It is true. That's very unlikely. I'm thinking of something else we would lose.
To a higher king. If he has a queen, if he has king, queen, we would lose.
Would we lose if they had king 4?
Also.
Really, we're losing to almost every king. King 2 we would be. King 4, king 5, king 6, king 7, king 9, king jack, king queen. We would all lose to them. Could you name me all the kings we lose to?
Every king above 3. 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, jack, queen.
An 8 or an ace, right? For 2 pair kings also. But yeah. If we lose to an ace, we lose to a king. The flush thing is a bit worrying. The straight thing is a worrying. Even though we're a favorite right now, it's still a concern for us that there's straight and flush cards. Because they could come on the turn or the river, even though we're a favorite. There's too much danger here. Our hand simply is not strong enough. We don't have too many outs here. What's one worry with our outs is how many outs would we have if you do the outs calculating on this board?
We would have 2 outs.
What about a 3?
Or the 3 I can give 3 outs, so 5 outs.
How many of our outs would be diamonds?
There are 2 diamonds on the board. We have to take 2 diamonds out. It would be 7, maybe.
A bit different. Those 5 outs, could you name me those 5 outs we have?
It is 4, 3 and 2 kings.
How many 3?
3 threes, 2 kings.
Let's start with the kings. Could you name me the suit of the kings as well that are our outs?
What do you mean the suit that are outs? The suit that...
Like specific, there's 2 kings that are outs. What are the specific ones?
Well, club, we cannot have a heart. We can have a diamond and a spade. We can get a diamond and a spade.
Which of them would you prefer?
A diamond.
Why?
Because I could make a flush.
With your cards?
Actually, I wouldn't prefer it because somebody else will make the flush.
So
I would prefer the spades.
I agree with that. If we think of the 3s, what suit 3s could you get?
Heart, spades, diamond, and club. Not spade. Heart, diamond, club.
Which would be the worst of those 3s to get?
Diamond.
Exactly. Out of our 5 outs, which of those 5 are diamond? How many of those 5 outs we have were diamond?
2.
2. Now, do you know what 5 outs gives us a win percent?
5 outs is 5 times 4 is 20%.
If you look in the middle, like the top of the table where it says your outs, what percent does it have there?
It says my odds.
Then there's a percent at the end of it.
20.
20. That seems sort of close with our 5 outs.
Yes, they are diamonds. So I actually should discard 2 of them. Then I have only 3 outs. It's 3 times 4 is 12.
Then we wouldn't have enough anymore. It's not a great scenario. It's a spot where I would say our outs are not very clean.
I hope I folded.
There's another worry though. Another worry is if someone has a better king, then which of the king outs is good for us? Will a king help us if someone has a better king?
Well, there's one chance it is diamond. There's 50% chance that it is a diamond.
Let's say someone has a better king. How many outs do we have?
Then we lose 2 outs.
Exactly. There's many things that's like poisoned about this scenario. The king outs are not clear. The diamond outs are worrying. Overall, that's why this outs calculating thing, I've always been a bit cautious about or skeptical about, because it's a good start to calculate your outs. As you get a stronger player, you have to start to differentiate between outs that are more worrying and less worrying, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Norman.
That's great then. Let's see how this played out then.
Let's hope I fold. I did. What do they have? You had an ace.
Against this ace-6, how many of our outs were live?
0.
That's not true. On the flop, which cards could we beat?
We could beat him with a king. There were 2 outs alive.
What about a 3?
We would have needed 3 on the turn and the river. Normally you don't see that.
What you're thinking now is that he has 2 pairs.
Actually, you're correct. One 3 could have given us 2 pairs and we could have won. You're correct.
On the flop, how many outs we had against his hand?
We had how many outs on the flop? We had 2 outs for the king. If you get 1 more king, we win. We have 3 outs for the 3. We still have 5 outs.
So against his specific hand, was any of that true? Like a 3 of diamonds would have been bad for us.
5 out gives 20% chance of winning, which means that he had 80% chance of winning.
Exactly. Against his specific hand, with the odds we were getting on the flop, could we have called or not?
We could. Would have been break even.
It would have been break even, which means is calling better than folding in a break even scenario?
It makes no difference.
Yes, it makes no difference long term there. It's more risky or more swingy to take a break even trade. Do you agree with that than to not take it?
I agree with it if you consider that there was 1 more player in the hand. Then I agree with it. If not, it is break even, it makes no difference. It's more swingy. It gets more moment in the game.
Yes.
People will get more active. I don't know. Break even is break even, makes no difference. It's just a waste of time. It makes no difference.
With the break even, that how the break even plays out is sometimes you get a win, sometimes you get a loss. The average will be break even.
Yes, correct, yes.
Now that is swingy. because sometimes you will take a loss, sometimes you will get a victory. By folding, you stayed still. A break-even in that way is more swingy.
A break-even is not interesting. That's why sometimes it would be amazing because I win, but sometimes it will be very bad because I lose. But in the end, it should equal out. I don't know how I want to tell you. If I like more to stay in the game as long as possible because I don't want to be the first player out of the game. It should be the same. If it's break even, it's break even. It's swingy. I would be kicked out more. I will be sitting with more chips on the table.
Good. Now, which would we more want? Would we want more stability or would we want more of this swing? If we have a choice,
Our mentality, it is better more stability. It will be harder to live with more swings. For our psychology, mathematically, it should be the same. The difference is that you are longer in the game. Yes, that difference could be worth it for somebody like Daniel Negreanu. I might be able to agree to that. It's just that break even is break even. You take a position in the market for 5 millions. If you make 10 or 15 millions, that's great. If you lose, you are break even, then you lose nothing. Is that worth playing? It is worth playing. Probably because break even doesn't mean the same in poker than in trading. And it is not break even. You cannot know that it is break even. You can only know that it's break even once the market has moved enough in your favor. You can put your stop loss at your entry point. You don't know that when you start. It's the same that in poker. I don't mind break even trades when I'm trading.
If you listen for a moment, then in poker, break even is more like flipping a coin. If you get heads, you get 5 million. If you get tails, you get 5 million. It's break even. It will be swinging.
Only for your mentality, it will be swinging. For your result, it should.
No, that's incorrect. It will be swing also for your actual bank account or your big blind amount.
Big blind, yes. You like stability, and I don't understand that. It's great. Stability is great. You don't like the swings.
Well,
I don't like the swings also. It's just that if it's break even, it's break even. You have to tell me why it could not be break even. Like, are there more fees involved, or is there something we don't look at? Then I would agree. If it's break even, it's break even. It should make no difference. Let's say I give you 10K, then you give me back 10K. It's the same. Yes, there's a swing. I have minus 10K. If I'm sure that you give me back the 10K, it makes no difference. It's swingy because the amount at my distilled table certainly drops from 10K. If I know that I get it back, then it makes no difference.
In poker, it's on average break even. It's a statistical break even.
That means it takes a long time until you get that break even.
If you really try to understand me now, what is the average chip? Let's take two scenarios. You can have two tournaments with 70 big blinds, or you can have one tournament with 140, the other tournament with 0 big blind. Which two tournaments do you think I would pick? Would I pick two tournaments with 70? Or I would pick one tournament with 140, another with 0.
You want two tournaments with 7.
Exactly. The average of those two would be the same. You could say, well, what's the difference? If I have 140 and 0, it averages out to 70 as well. The difference is, in one of those tournaments, you will not be alive anymore.
It sounds like you can play twice instead of playing once.
You could play once with a lot, or you could play twice something. The key thing is, what I agree with you, this break even is a misleading term because something could be break even, but still mean you go out of the tournament. That's not a good break even.
If you do that a lot, you normally get into the bubble, then it will harm you if you do that a lot. Maybe. I don't know.
Yes, it certainly will. Actually, I have something in mind. We'll continue this discussion next time. For now, for end, we can do a little bit more straight practice with this board here. This break-even thing will continue.
Great.
We'll show you something on that. On this board, let's finish here. On this board now, there's two new cards on the board. Did it create new two cards together?
It did create an 8 and a 9.
Very good. Did it also create one or two gaps?
It did create 2 gaps.
Let's start with the 2 gap because we already worked on that a little bit. With the 2 gap, my advice was to choose the cards that would exactly fit that 2 gap.
Yes, 7, 8.
Ooh, I noticed something. It's not a 2 gap actually.
We already have an 8. So it's a gap.
What gap is
A 1 gap, 7.
1 gap? Let's start by filling that 1 gap with a 7, like you said. Here, because the 8's on the board, there's a lot of straight cards on the board. Just the 7 gives us how many cards in a row?
It gives us 4 cards in a row.
Whenever we have 4 cards of a straight or a flush, that's what's called a real draw in poker, meaning we're only 1 card away from getting something good. Any 7 would give us a real draw. Now, to make a real straight, to have completion and get 5 cards in a row, we would seek 1 card higher or 1 card lower. What could the other card be then?
10, 5.
Perfect. We could have 10, 7 or 7, 5. Both of them would make us a straight. Then with this 8, 9, let's work a little on that 8, 9. 2 cards close together. Could you put 2 cards next to 8 and a 9? Those cards that are close together. Could you put 2 cards next to it?
10 and a jack.
Perfect. A 10, a jack. That would give us how many cards in a row?
4.
Perfect. Then what would be the cards we would need from the board to make a straight?
Queen,
It would be
7.
going perfect. 1 higher, 1 lower. If the jack and a 10 would be what we're holding, we would be missing a 7 or a queen. Could you put other 2 cards next to the 8 and a 9?
No.
Well, could you
Put 7 and a 5.
Let's do something tricky here. Could you click the turn button at the bottom in the replay? I think the 6 was distracting us a little bit there. Now you put jack and a 10 next to 8 and a 9. Could you put another 2 cards next to them?
7 and a 6.
That would give us how many cards in a row?
4.
We would be missing which cards?
A 5 and a 10.
Perfect, a 5 and a 10. Very good. Now you put 2 cards higher next to this and 2 cards lower next to this. There's actually one more way, which would be to put 1 card higher and 1 card lower. So it would be like wrapping around 8 and a 9.
Yes.
Which would those cards be?
7, 10.
Okay, and how many cards would that give us in a row?
4.
Which would be the cards we would be looking to hit to make a straight?
Jack and X.
Very good. I'm very happy with your last answers there. I'm often angry, all these things with
You're never angry.
but
Maybe you get angry because I don't give you the right answer, but you never show your anger.
well, that's good at least.
That's great. That's really good. You could be proud of yourself. Not a lot of people are capable of doing that.
Well, thank you. Overall, very happy with the progression you showed with the straight understanding. Then next time we'll continue this discussion of the break-even thing, which there's...
Can I close the table? Or do you want to do?
It's all for the poker part of today.
Great.
There's these words. Sometimes I'm trying to think of something at the moment. Like these words in language that people say actually mean something else. Like literally is one word. People say something they did literally. They don't actually mean literally, they mean figuratively.
That they use the language wrong.
They use the language wrong. There's with poker these things where I'm trying to remember now. One is that break even, where it's actually something can be break even one hand, but it's not break even for the whole tournament. That's what I meant. If you could have 140 or 0 or 77.
It's like, let's say, every tournament starts with 70 big blind, what I'm playing, around 70 big blind. Let's say they tell you, you only start with 50 big blinds. You can play more tournaments for that amount. Would you agree or not? You would agree because you're a good player. More tournaments, more chance of winning. Does this make any sense, what I'm saying? I'm not sure it does. You get less big blinds every time. From time to time, you can play one tournament more. You get a penalty. In exchange for that penalty, you can play more. I think you would agree because if you play more tournaments every time, you have again a chance. It's not sure that you will win the tournament with 50 big blinds. Sometimes you will. You can do it enough time that it is profitable for you. You would take that penalty. It's not sure that it would be so easy for me. to start with a penalty of 20 or 25 big blinds. But for you, it would make such a difference. You can overcome that penalty. It's more interesting for you to just be in the game longer, even if you get a little penalized.
Exactly. That's a key part in tournaments, is really staying in it. Anything could happen if you're in it. That's one of the first things I try to teach people who learn tournaments is, if you're out, you won't see the next 10 hands. Maybe your next hand would have been aces. If you have 0 chips, you won't even see that hand. It's a big thing in tournaments to be happy to be there, essentially. You never know what could happen unless you're actually there. Overall, maybe next month or this month, you will go on an upswing of 20 tournaments upwards in your results. You will only ever have that experience if you're in there in that fight. If someone wouldn't even try, they wouldn't even have that opportunity. The same with becoming a successful writer. It's maybe not easy to become that. Certainly it's difficult. If someone doesn't write a book, then they have no chance of that. That's a big part of tournaments, because the break-even term is used for that specific hand of you win 20 big blinds, you lose 20 big blinds, like it's all the same. It's not actually all the same.
I don't like every example you gave, Norman, even if I understand what you try to teach me, because it only makes sense if the strategy you are using in the game you are playing, you can actually win. The probability of winning is high enough that it's worth the effort you take. If not, if you say, if I don't try, then I cannot win. I have to try. That mentality I don't like. If you go that mentality, well, every month you play Lotto with as much as money as possible. Because if you don't try, you cannot win. The issue with that mentality is that the chance of ever winning is so low that it's not worth the effort you put into it. Somebody will win, but not you. It's not worth the effort you will put in. Do you agree with that or not?
I can see that, yes.
You have to play a game where you can win. If the game is against you, then it's not worth. It's like if you want to find gold, you have to go somewhere where there's a chance you actually can hit gold. Just digging a hole somewhere won't allow you to find gold because it's not that abundant. You have to go somewhere where they know, they did some research, they know that there should be a certain amount, then it's worth investing your time and effort, maybe to get it if there's enough of it. But you cannot just start digging holes somewhere hoping to strike gold, even if you have certainty that it is a good place to do that. You have to choose your game wisely. You have to play something where your probability of making it is much higher than your probability of losing. That's very hard. With a card game, it's very hard. Well, if you get really good at it, then yes, it will take a lot of time to get good and then a lot of time to make some money. That's the issue. It's still an awesome game. What do you think, Norman? Are you trying to write your next book?
No. Well, what can I say?
In poker, yes. As soon as you get profitable, your desire should be to be in the game as long as possible. Because your EV is positive. Your expected value. Do you say that about a person? Maybe not your expected value. What do you say about a person? Is how many big blinds he wins every 100 hands. That is positive. How do you say that?
Win rate?
His win rate is positive. Yes, his win rate is better than EV. Well, since his win rate is positive, he should play as long as possible. Even if variance is huge. If his win rate is positive, he should play as long as possible.
That's a great explanation, because if you think your win rate is positive, then you want to play as many hands as possible, because each hand will be a positive win rate for you. If you go out of the tournament, the other tournament you have 140 big blinds, you will on average play less hands. This hand with 140 big blinds, you will play a lot of hands. The tournament with 0 big blinds, you will play 0 more hands. Whereas if you had more level 70 big blinds, on average, you would play more hands for 2 of those tournaments.
You would play more hands for the same amount of money. But the thing is, you should not be out. You should not lose your bankroll. You can keep playing. When you get kicked out of a tournament, you just start a new tournament. And during the same amount of time, you play the same amount of hands. I understand for the same amount of money you engage, you play more hands. Yes, that's true. Because the other time you have to go through one more buy-in. You don't have to do that in that case.
That's a good explanation.
Buying up, there's always the tax to pay. So If you can play more but pay less the tax, then it's profitable. See, that's actually the point that explains why break even is not break even. Because of the tax you have to pay, the rake. You play 10,000 hands, but sometimes you have to buy more buy-ins. When you have to pay more buy-ins, you have to pay more taxes, more the rake. So that's not good for you. The rake has to be as low as possible for you. The lower it is, the more profitable it is. It's better to get it a little cheaper. I don't think it makes as much of a difference. Is the rake the same for every tournament table you enter? If it is a low one or a huge one, does Daniel Negana pay more for entering it in the tax? The casino ask him, does he pay more because he plays at a higher level than I play because I play at a lower level?
Well, monetarily more, percentage-wise, usually less. The total amount more. It's like billionaires might pay less taxes in percentage. The total amount will still be way more than in any normal individual.
In that case, what does casino like more? People who pay more, a small amount, or people who pay a big amount but less? What does the casino like more?
Casino just likes more money. Let's say in normal online tournaments, there's like a 10% tax. Let's say it's a $10 tournament. $1 goes to the site. The site gets $1 per person. $10 tournament, they get $1 out of that 10. That's 10%. It's $1 for the site. A site would much rather have a $1,000 tournament where they get just 1%. Because 1% of 1,000 is $10. They would get 10 times more money that way, even though it's less of a percent. 1% could be 10 times more than 10%.
To answer my question, is it better for the casino if Daniel Negano plays, or is it better for the casino if a lot of big fish play at low levels?
Well, always better than if Daniel Negreanu plays.
For the image. That's not what I want to come in. I just want to know what is more profitable for them.
For the fees, it will be. Although you could argue that it takes more investment from the site because they need better security for stronger players. That's actually one way to check for the safety of the site you play. It's not a guaranteed way, but if people play on it for a lot of money, then more likely that the site has better safety measures there, more fair games. But overall, yes, I mean, the site just wants to make the most profit, so they will make more profit. If people play the tournaments like you play, let's say people enter it for $1,000, they would get way more dollars per tournament as a fee. It's not very easy to find those people. That's why sites run these lower tournaments, because there's not so many people out there.
Then they charge more for the lower tournaments. They charge more.
As a percentage.
But does it cost them really more to have people play who are less good? Does it cost them more than to have better people who play? It might cost them more because if they keep the rake too small, it wouldn't be worthwhile maybe to them. It costs too much to let everything run, have assistants, calls, centers, all that stuff. If they don't ask more for it because they play for too little money, they have to tax them more.
I mean, personally, let's say if my lessons were $5, I would have very many people very interested. I could teach 17 hours a day or something. There would be interest for it. It would be very tiring for me. The quality would go down. Overall, I don't think I would be wanting that. It wouldn't be enjoyable for me.
I understand that, Norman. That's a little different because you don't scale. A casino does scale up to a certain extent. There's a limit because of technology. Maybe the technology doesn't scale into infinity because you have to have a lot of energy. Maybe there's a limit with the technology, how big you can scale, especially an online casino where you don't have to put a seat, like a physical seat where somebody has to sit a table in front of them. If it's just virtual, well, then it scales not to infinity, but to a very high amount. You cannot clone yourself if you don't scale.
Exactly. Through that's why the richest people in the world are people who like Zuckerberg and who own like Google and Facebook, because it scales so well, the internet stuff.
Easy to copy and paste.
And the same with poker sites. They make the same tournament and they just make it $1, $5, $10, $50, $100. and just people will enter and play whatever levels, and they will availability thing there exactly.
Donald Trump had a lot of casinos. He had 2 casinos in the same city. It wasn't a good investment. It's not everything to have a casino. At that time, there was no internet. Norman, thanks a lot for the chat. I found it interesting to think those questions through with you. I'm glad that I see you next week. Do you have anything to add or anything else you want to talk about?
Maybe I would talk something about your book, actually.
I read it a lot when I'm outside, I have stuff to do in town, I'm in public transport. I really like reading my book. But what's your comment on it?
Just some things
That it keeps me in the right track. It gets me back my philosophical thoughts, and then it's a little easier to endure the crowd, the people around me, because I meditate on my own thoughts. I like that. Your point? The subject is good because it should put you back in touch with your inner side. Be a critic of the world. You don't chase stuff that you shouldn't chase or desire too much. All the stuff around, they just want you to go for it. That should actually slow you down if you read it. It's awesome to read. It's a little hard to explain why, but I really like reading my book when I'm outside. Sorry for interrupting you twice. Go ahead, Norman.
Reading's a good habit. I like to try to do it more also. I'm not very consistent with it. Past many years hasn't been too high on my priorities. It could change. Anyway, one thought I really liked was the universal basic income is aimed at the same condition of permanent assistance for people. I really like that thought. One thing I thought about it is I'm not sure it's aimed by the evil overlords of the world. It's more of something that people innately want, because I was thinking of some animals, you could cage them. If they're a wild animal, they will never really submit. You could say some people are that way. Most people don't want responsibility. They actually want all their responsibility to go to the state, to go to the politicians. Because then all they have to do is complain if they don't like how things are. They don't really have to be like inwardly that it's my fault. It's not my idea. I've heard it previously said that humans have domesticated some animals, but the biggest domestication that has happened is people have domesticated themselves. More so than the cats and the dogs, people have domesticated themselves. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you that the elites want to have more power over people. They very well might like that. Why not like that? It's good for them. There's this other side that most people are like cattle in some way, or like domesticated animals. They year by year get more comfortable and really want to give away more and more of their freedoms. Then in some ways, reading your book is like you're like a wild boar with just a bunch of pigs in the pen. You're a wild boar. You're really looking at all them. Why do you submit to the farmer? He's just gonna eat you for Christmas. Look how enslaved you are here. All the other pigs are just like, well, it's so nice. We get food every day and it's warm here and farmer takes care of us and it's all so nice. And you're like, no, I'd rather be a wild boar and just run in the forest, have my own responsibility. If I get injured, a farmer won't take me to the vet, for example, or I won't have a warm farm to be in. More, the farmer won't eat me for Christmas dinner. If there's a pig flu or something, question about a choice for human beings to do. Most people, as civilization has progressed, more and more people choose to be more and more domesticated in that way. Through it is why the elites can have more and more control over people as the society has progressed. If we go back 100 or 200 or 500 years, people were less domesticated in that way. They were more independent, meant they had more fight in them in that way. Whereas nowadays, it feels like they're just more happy being just in that system. I wanted to share that thought that if someone's very domesticated, if you open that farm door, the wild boar, you could keep him here for a long time. The wild boar will just run to the forest as quickly as they could. Actually, how people are nowadays, you don't actually need any policing over them, really. It's actually, you can open the farm door. Actually, the pigs will want to submit, want to obey the elite. It seems easier to have control over people. All these things like the cameras in our mobile phones, computers, the surveillance mechanisms, microphones, we all just obey to that, to really take it as a necessary thing. All the other things as well, like our food source, our water source, we're very much dependent on all that. I see that the permanent assistance, it captured it so nicely. I really like this thought of the human beings as a domesticated animal.
You bring up very interesting points, Norman. Thank you for that. I found it interesting really listening to you on that subject. I have a couple of questions to you. One is, do you think that is human nature? Do you think we are just like this? Just our nature. If it's really our nature, it's very hard to change your nature if that's your nature. Do you think that's your nature 100%? It's like asking of a wolf to not be carnivore. Is that possible? I don't think it is. I don't think he can become a vegetarian. He will always be a carnivore. Do you think that what you just said about humans, well, like pigs and like the farmer, how he treats them, do you think that's our nature to be like you described? I really like the analogy you used. You said that I'm a wild pig and they are domesticated pig. I found that very interesting, a little funny. Do you think it's human nature to be like this? Or do you think it has nothing to do with our nature? It's just our environment who makes us like that.
Somehow comes to mind what happens those 12 years in school and even more years in university and years in kindergarten, that maybe it just is the result of the indoctrination we go through all our development. Tough to know what we would be like, because if you take a wild boar and really take it as a child from the mother, start to grow it with all the domesticated pigs, there are some people who have very exotic animals. There's videos of people who play with a tiger like if it was a cat, because the tiger is just inhibiting his instinct. Because the tigers being grown, they were taken when they were very small, and then they've been with the same people, fed for 10, 20 years. And in the tiger's mind, it doesn't see itself as a tiger, a human in that way. It's really tough to know because we all go through the same system of the same school, whatever country we're from. Really, I have some experiences of some memories. I remember in first grade, I found it impossibly difficult to sit still for an hour and listen to the teacher just tell the stuff he tells there. Then you get 15 minutes small break to play and have fun. Although even there were strict teachers who says, no, don't run, no, don't yell, all these things. If you go next to a classroom where there are first graders and they have a break, you will hear so much of laughter, crying, all these expressive emotions. And you will also see kids running, jumping, rolling around, all that. Then you go a few grades next, you see kids each year will become more in a proper way of being in that way. They become more still, they're more and more quiet, there's less and less play in them, they're more and more orderly. Until one day they graduate.
You were saying that kids, when you look at them, they get more domesticated. They stop making noise. They start behaving much more as they're supposed to behave every class you go up.
They lose their expressiveness. They lose their courage. They have a lot of characteristics. They speak with each other. They can speak to strangers. They're not afraid to be different. They're not afraid to have strange hobbies. They're like unique in many ways. They enjoy life. And what I was saying, how after the school finishes, you look at workforce, people are just really not enjoying their life. They're all just waiting to get drunk or for their small break or to have their coffee or something like that. Overall, they're not so happy. They've lost that joy for life. It's just a big part of it is just a result of all those years of domestication and training, essentially, where we're all made into domesticated, made into these slaves in some ways. Even if not outwardly, maybe slavery was abolished, not because we don't have slavery anymore, it's just we don't need outward slavery anymore. It's like we don't need the leash anymore because people are so domesticated, they just obey. We don't need to have a leash. People just will do what they're told anyway. It's not like farms or cotton fields disappeared anywhere. It's just people go there willingly. Then they get their paycheck and they don't cause any trouble anymore because they're orderly now.
Yes, all you say is very interesting. I like your train of thought. You're very close to the answer. What is just a little strange for me is after all you said that you still are doubtful if it's the environment who shapes us and makes us behave as we do, or if it's our nature. Because most of the arguments you gave me said that it is the environment. I didn't hear any real arguments defending the other side, that it is our nature. That just cannot be helped.
I will give you one then. I will
Just
give you
as
one.
humans are too much for nature, why don't you accept, you just declare it is our environment that creates us like this? Because that's what I think on this subject, not on every subject. On this I do.
If back to first grade, it's like that. It's just like they like the structure. They like that what you have to do, you don't have to do much. You just have to sit there and be quiet, do what you're told. You don't have to think with your own mind. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to be challenged. You don't have to take too much risk. You just do the homework. Then the teacher will say, good job. Yes, good job. I will give you an A or a whatever grade you get. If you don't do well, you get a B. That's fine. It's all planned out for you. Then you go to the university, you learn something, you get a degree, you do a job at that. Then you can have a home for it, have a family, have some food, travel sometimes. That's all people want. The counter argument is if it was really forced upon people, you would see way more of people when teacher leaves the classroom, then it gets a bit more noisy. The farmer walks away, everyone's free now. Everyone's free. There's a few people who really start to misbehave when the teacher leaves the classroom. What do the most of the kids do? Most of the kids are exactly the same way. Maybe they a little bit more now, like talk to their neighbor or something. Overall, they'll just keep on doing the work they were doing. How I see it, even as children, if it was just forced upon us, then it would take all these 12 years and only after that people would be orderly. If I think back, most people were very orderly already in kindergarten or first grade. There was no time for indoctrination. Most people already then wanted or even enjoyed being sheep. They didn't want to be a wolf. They didn't want to be a tiger. They just wanted to be a sheep in a pack of sheep. It's safe like that. It's nice like that. You feel like you fit somewhere. You feel like you belong somewhere. You don't feel lonely. You don't feel lost. You don't feel like in conflict. You seem to fit in where you are. It's just most people's mindset, even as a child's already like that. Then there's some makers that take a long time to change around. Most people want to be domesticated. It just, they have to still go through the process. They have to learn the grammar. They have to learn the etiquette. They have to learn the manners. They have to learn all the things they teach us in school. You still have to go through the process. Most people willingly want to go through it so they feel it's less stressful. Like people often say to me, poker playing, it must be stressful. I say something different. I say, well, to me, having a boss would be stressful. Imagine having a farmer. Everything is just the farmer's thing. You're just a farmer once, they could fire you at every moment. To me, that is stressful. For most people, it would be way more stressful to be without a farmer. Now you're a wild boar and you have to make up your own mind. I guess I see a bit of both in myself. I don't think I'm like completely wild in that way. I can see some of this, how nice it is. I also have some nostalgia about school. Like, there's something comforting where you know exactly where you have to be, what you have to do. It feels like jail in this way. Some people like jail. There's this famous movie, Shawshank Redemption. Wasn't there, like, I could misremember. I think there was an old, based on the Stephen King book, Shawshank Redemption. I think there was an old man there who had all his life lived in jail, who didn't want to escape. No, there was an old man who was released from prison, and all his life he was in prison. There was an old man released from prison, and he didn't like the life outside prison. Found it too chaotic. He found prison was way more comforting.
I'm still here, I'm listening.
I guess that's all I had to say on that.
Great, Norman. There's one thing that is important, and I don't think you can prove me wrong on this one. I consider every form of education as brainwashing. I don't think we actually can come up with a form of education that would not be brainwashing. Stoicism falls under that umbrella. It is also brainwashing. The only difference is that it will come out of you the best qualities that you have inside of yourself. And
to interrupt, but
in order to bring those qualities,
Mother Boar also brainwashes the wild boars. Mother Tiger also brainwashes the little tigers. There's a difference there. One way of brainwashing is where you make people more dependent, what you said, permanent assistance. Then the other one is where if you read Stoicism, it doesn't give you comfort. It doesn't give you permanent assistance in that way. It challenges you in many ways. Although you could say school challenges you to become more of yourself in some ways. I guess that's where it's tough to have that distinction.
It will give you confidence that it is comforting. Stoicism. It's like you are confident in being a good poker player. You're confident that when you sit on a poker player table, at least if you don't play at too high levels, that you're confident that it will turn in your favor. Stoicism will give you the same confidence about other subjects, your life, your death, the way you treat your children, your wife, the world around you. It will give you a lot of courage, confidence in yourself, not in the system around you, in your own capabilities to endure whatever comes against you. Even if it's an army, you will be confident in facing them, knowing that when the moment comes, how to act, because you thought it through a lot before it happens. You came to a resolution before the enemy knocked on your door. It will give you a lot of confidence. It might be not what the people want to hear, because it's not some made-up fairy tale. It will give you a lot of confidence, a lot of courage. My idea is just, I'm not sure that we will ever be able to create an education system that is not brainwashing, because even people in families, they brainwash each other. They brainwash each other with nonsense that is often wrong. Stupid stuff, like, for example, they say that the family only holds because of what the mother does, how she manages the finance of the household, and all the works she does at home, and how she takes care about the education. They put her on a huge pedestal, and they act like if the man doesn't do anything. You will see that a lot. Even if it's de facto totally wrong, everybody in the family will accept that. The kids, the husband, the wife. It is just the way they did start to brainwash each other. And going out of the brainwashing and saying that's not true. Actually, my father contributes. He brings back a salary every month. That's a lot because we need that to pay the rent and all the cars, all the rest. Nobody answers that. Nobody says you're wrong. It's not just your participation, but what your husband does. Nobody says that. In some families, they won't say it because they are just brainwashed in believing that the mother does everything. The finance would never hold. They could never pay all the bills if the mother didn't do just a great job. Sometimes it's like this. The family starts to brainwash each other, or they brainwash you in believing that your dad is a bad person and you shouldn't talk to him. That's a way of brainwashing. It works very well. If you have enough time, you brainwash your kids into believing that your dad is bad and that you shouldn't have any contact with him. Every time you interact with people, you start brainwashing them up to a certain degree. Now, why do you brainwash? What is the goal? I don't think that the evil elites have the best goal in their heart regarding us. Why does Elon Musk, the others want much an UBI, universal basic income? Because it will make mobility even harder. Because it will be even harder to get out of poverty. The UBI they will give, it won't be extremely large. You are lucky if you can get healthcare, food, and a roof over your head with that. It won't be huge. The way to escape that condition will be extremely hard once AI does nearly everything. All the money for the UBI will be printed. Elon Musk has a lot of assets. Those assets will skyrocket. It will make him even more wealthy. There's a good chance he will become the first trillionaire. The gap between us, the financial elite, will just widen exponentially. For him, it's a very good deal. For us, it's just survival. For him, it's an extremely sweet deal. Why do the evil elites do that? Why do our governments do that? Because for them, it's very good. It's just not necessary. You can create equality on Earth. By equality, I mean a decent standard of living. Yes, maybe someone could have 2 cars instead of 1 car. Anyway, you don't need a car because it will be just a service. You just call a self-driving car and comes, picks you up and brings you somewhere. You want access. And you can give access to everybody for everything without putting a price tag on it. It's not necessary. They don't want that because they want to keep their privileges, even if those privileges make no more sense. It's already the case now, but think about the future. Think about 20, 30 years. Think about what AI will be capable of doing. Then realize that you can give access to everything everybody desires, material stuff, without putting a price tag on it. They are evil elites because they just want to keep us alive. They don't care about our well-being. It's very hard to be content and happy when you realize that all you can do is don't complain so they don't kick you out of your room. You still can get your UBI every month. You must be scared because if you start complaining, maybe then they cut you off and then you starve to death. If all you can hope for is that you just survive, that you get 1 or 2 distractions, that's not great. While they get more wealthy than anybody on earth ever was and ever could have dreamed of. That's not a good thing. And they don't get it because they do great stuff. They get it just because they are already very wealthy and the assets will just keep rising in value, while we only get access to the minimum.
I get it. That's enough. I think we could minimum though. What you were saying was universal basic income. The standard of living has been increasing all this time. It doesn't really matter if some people are super wealthy, because like you said, you can only drive 1 car. You only can sleep in 1 bed at a time. It's not going to be so different. The way these people live, there's nothing special they can do, we can't do. They will go running. They will go to the movies. They will listen to music. All of this is shared already. Really, a lot of their value in that way is just what their shares of their company is. And why are their companies so valuable? Because it provides a lot of service to humanity. That's why it's so valuable. I don't really see that as evil. I see those people just helping everyone having a better life. It's not like they get so much extra for it. They get some rewards for their creating something new to the society. Overall, everyone has all the more or less the same stuff accessible anyway. I wanted to add this thing based on what you said. Real education creates confidence, ability, skills. It develops something, grows something. Indoctrination creates dependence on the system. That's the difference there. That's how you can distinguish if you're really getting better or not. Hopefully, for example, with our lessons, it has been mostly that you feel more confident in your decision making as a poker player, ideally. Then I've been able to provide poker education. I've been able to provide it that you're dependent on my opinion or the machine telling us what we can go all in with. A lot of poker players are like that. They're like, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just going to do what the machine tells me to do, that's the way to go. That would be indoctrination.
Norman, skills are important. The question is not just skills. We are looking at society. If you take some distance, I still think that I can argue that they have the same mentality as a slave master. They want to give us just the minimum, we barely survive. That's their goal. They want to pay the less amount possible to keep us alive. One more thing. Elon Musk, you tell me, as a role model. He recently asked several times for huge bonuses. Those bonuses had to be paid by people. How dare he stand in front of us while he's already the most wealthy person on earth and always ask for more?
If he doesn't spend that money,
he could easily make that money in the market. He could easily make that money by investing. That's hard. He doesn't want that. He just says, pay me that or I won't work for you anymore. He did it several times for huge amounts.
He doesn't take anything from you, really.
I just want to tell you that
if someone gets something, it doesn't mean others are poorer for it.
Yes, actually it does, up to a certain extent. The money is taken, some people will pay for it in one way or another.
He can only eat so much.
He always wants more. He has more than enough a long time ago. He could just stop. He always wants more, even though his wealth, because of all the assets he has, keeps skyrocketing due to inflation. He still asks for more bonuses.
If you let me ask something, what's there a shortage of because he has hoarded it? Are there shortage of cars because he's hoarding all the cars? Is there shortage of land because he has bought all the land and doesn't let people go there? Is there shortage of food because he's so rich he buys all the food, doesn't give it to people? He doesn't cause any shortages. It's imaginary, his wealth. He doesn't really use it for something. He would be evil if he would sell all his shares and then would take all his money and buy everything from the stores, and then people would be starving to death, and he would just buy every food and not give it to people. He could do something like that. He could start to buy every car. People wouldn't have new cars. He just buys every new car that comes out. He could buy all the apartments in all the cities, then make rent super high. He has all the apartments. He doesn't do that stuff.
It gives him extreme leverage. He will use that leverage.
He hasn't used it in a bad way.
Yes, he did. All his intervention with the government are a proof of bad leverage. You as a consumer want a reliable, cheap car because his link to the government is so high.
Which is going to produce.
BYD, the Beyond Your Dreams cars, Chinese cars, can't be sold in the European or American markets in favor of his company, Tesla. He harmed you by doing that. I don't want to go over it again and again.
One moment. Who produces Tesla cars? Americans and Europeans. Who produces the Chinese car? The Chinese people. If we allow all our Europeans and Americans to buy the Chinese car, where do those people get jobs who work for Tesla? They would not have jobs then. Was it selfish for him to do it, or was it actually beneficial for the US people that they buy their own stuff? Otherwise, they would just be slaves to the Chinese. It's not about Elon Musk. It's for the benefit of the US government itself that its people drive the cars they produce in the US. Because if they drive Chinese cars, then it's going to be good for the Chinese, not so good for the US. The US people will get cheaper cars, so that's good. They will lose their jobs in the car manufacturing.
The amount of people who work for Tesla are not huge. A lot of automation is already used.
There's a whole industry.
More money is created in the markets just by Tesla stock going up. That creates more wealth than the people actually working and producing for Tesla. You create winners and losers. The direct impact is not that the Europeans or the Americans are more happy. The direct impact is just that Elon doesn't go bankrupt, that Tesla doesn't have to close its business. That's the direct impact.
Who would it be bad for if it went bankrupt? Who would lose from it?
Make good condition where everybody can produce and the best car will be produced, and all the ones who cannot produce the best car under the best conditions, they will just disappear. And that's normal. That works in your favor.
Many people depend on him would lose their job to someone in China. Have you ever heard of this phrase like buy locally, support your local farmer or support your local whatever? It's the similar concept. There's thousands, tens of thousands of people, and indirectly hundreds of thousands of people in US and Europe who are all dependent on Tesla doing what? They're all voters who would be not very happy if Tesla would go bankrupt. What you say is fair. It's fair if we all have one country. If there's no military, no nothing, then it's fair. As long as we still have the fear that we could all fall under the Chinese dictatorship, be slaves to the Chinese, then we have to have a fight in that way, to not submit to them.
I get your arguments.
Because they don't play fair either. For example, buy from Russia right now. It's worse for our economy that we can't get cheap gas from Russia, for example. Chinese doesn't care about that. It doesn't care about also CO2 quotes and environmentalism and all this. China isn't playing fair to win these things. They probably have many ways how Tesla can't sell to their markets. Chinese government is very restricted. They're not playing fair. If we play fair, then we just lose more to them. And then one day they will own everything. And then we'll all have to be Chinese, which could happen, I guess.
The issue with your reasoning, some of your arguments might hold up to a certain extent. I'm not saying that everything you say is totally wrong, Norman. The issue is that we just choose somebody to blame. We always want to see another guy. Either we blame Elon, or we blame the US government, or we blame the Chinaman. We always find somebody to blame.
I don't think I blame anyone.
We react, and it's not us who actually mess things up. It's just not productive to think like that. A government can only do as much as we tolerate. The issue is that we have been too much domesticated and we tolerate everything. In China, here, or everywhere else. That's dangerous. It would be nice if people would wake a little up, realize that there's no reason to give them all those immense powers, and just try to find a way to survive in the system without being the biggest slave imaginable. For billionaires, I don't like hoarding a huge amount of money while it doesn't trickle down other than the amount they want, which is never an amount that will make them go broke or poor. Even if they do it, even if philanthropic stuff, they give all the money away, they will just calculate it and make sure that it only happens at the end of their life. Then some people will get the benefits and the favors and others don't. I don't like when the government gets involved and creates winners and losers. That if winners and losers exist, the only one who has the right to declare them is the free market. That's my idea. Because the free market is still close to nature. And the government is just a law you make up. I don't like that.
I don't like that. I've said it before, is that I don't see there being a choice about it. Because if we abolish our government, what would happen tomorrow? Then tomorrow we would have a new government. It would be a Chinese or Russian government. Until we can convince everyone to abolish their government, I don't think we should abolish ours. It helps us better to have a bad government that we own than having someone else having government over ourselves. I wanted to say this with Elon Musk's wealth. How many Teslas has he produced? Probably millions. How many Teslas does he own? Maybe 1, maybe 5, maybe 10 Teslas. In terms of goods and services, he's taking way less than 0.001% to himself. What's actually being produced, like a real thing, like a car is, he takes almost nothing from that. All of that he gives away. The only thing he takes for himself is just credit. It's something that's imaginary that he's not really leveraging usually. I'm sure you find some cases where they're doing greedy things, stuff like that. In the big picture, all his billions just stand in his bank account. He's not actually leveraging most of it. It's just most of it is in the stocks of Tesla. In that way, a billionaire, he's something imaginary for him is just growing. his money, which is all the physical things, he's just giving away to people. People all over the world are driving their Teslas, which they wouldn't have without.
They would drive another electric car, a cheaper
But
one.
how much has he produced in terms of innovation in that sector? All that. Another electric car has a billionaire owner. At some point, if you remove all the billionaires
No.
and remove all the big companies, what would we have? We wouldn't have
But
Google Meet without Google.
The issue is not to be a billionaire. The issue is to leverage your status of a billionaire to get favors. Elon does that. There was Charlie, the guy who got assassinated. They had the funerals of the guy. His wife talked. Elon was sitting in the VIP section next to Trump. They were both laughing and having a very good time. If that image on its own doesn't show you that he's leveraging his status, it's very hard for me to explain it to you. On the free market, I'm not opposed that some people get extremely wealthy. I just don't want them to play games with the government, get favor from the government because they are extremely wealthy. They're well off on their own. They can live on the same rules than all of us. They don't need special favors.
Get that.
Norman, thank you.
There's Ford in US or General Motors or other car companies. If those car companies have a worse time because they don't get those favors, that doesn't seem good. Although we have to always ask this, someone gets favors from a government, maybe they're also giving more to the government than another company is. I think he's taking the space contracts, for example, from the US government. There could be a bit of give and take there, that he's not getting those favors for nothing. He's probably doing something to make the government happy. For example, helping the government space programs or help them with the Doge thing, which was like as government efficiency, waste stuff. I don't think it was super successful. I'm not disagreeing with you. It seems a bit dirty if someone gets like favors. Sometimes people also deserve favor. In your personal life, I think you could find that sometimes it's merited to have a favor if someone has put a lot of good faith and effort in doing something good more than the others. They sometimes deserve something extra as a reward. Don't you think? Promote or reward those who have done very well, like an extra reward.
The reward of succeeding should be enough. Under the free market, it should be enough. Then I give them all the power to use their wealth as they want.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I think that's enough. It was really interesting talking to you. Thanks a lot for that exchange. I know that the subject of the evil elites is difficult.
It's a bit depressing sometimes.
The subject about human nature was really interesting. We are quite close on how we see actually human nature. Even if you don't say it as clearly as I do, we are quite close at looking at human nature. We agree on a lot of things already. That's huge. The evil elites, well, they will always exist. There's no point of giving up and declaring that it's hell on earth. I know that you can survive and that you can still find some happiness. How can I close it? Even the evil elites, in my opinion, should not overdo it. Because I know they have a lot of technology and a lot of power. If they keep on showing us that they are really above the law, like with Epstein, that Trump was a huge friend of Epstein, that is shocking. And nobody is concerned about that, or not really concerned.
What comes to mind, does the wolf worry about what sheep think of the wolf?
They don't. That's the issue.
That's the issue sometimes take with these conversations is we can talk 100 hours of what Elon Musk did right or wrong. He doesn't give two shits one way or another. Overall,
if you get some critical thinking, you won't endorse it 100%. You're already on the right track of becoming more independent and thinking for yourself instead of having others feed you ideas.
I'm sure your influence, our conversations have played a big part in that. Thank you.
I know that you are progressing. Not everybody is in the same shoes than you are. Sometimes I say something for the entire humanity. I'm not just talking to you. Thank you a lot, Norman. I really enjoyed our extremely long conversation. It was very interesting.
It was fun, I would say.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to our next poker lesson. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.